We often feel like life is a heavy, slow-moving river. We see change as a long process of effort and time. But have you ever noticed those rare moments when everything suddenly shifts in a single second? A realization hits, or a situation transforms, and you are suddenly standing in a completely different version of your life. It feels like a breakthrough, but the mechanism behind it is much stranger than we realize. We assume the world is a solid, continuous stream of events. We believe we are moving through space and time. Yet there is a hidden pattern to our existence that suggests otherwise. What if the feeling of being stuck is actually a misunderstanding of how fast you are already moving? The truth is, reality isn't flowing at all. It is flickering. We have all had those days where everything feels heavy. Every task is a struggle, and every door seems to close. Then, without warning, the atmosphere changes. Suddenly, you find yourself in a sequence of perfect timing. You meet exactly who you need to see. You say exactly what needs to be said. Why do these shifts happen so suddenly? We often dismiss these moments as luck or simple coincidence. But when you look closer, a strange pattern begins to emerge. It is as if you have stepped out of one rhythm and into another. This pattern appears more often than we realize, yet we often overlook the most important detail of the experience. We assume we are slowly working our way toward a better life.
But the evidence suggests that the transition is actually immediate. You aren't drifting toward a new reality. You are jumping into one. Watch closely, because the mechanism behind this is far simpler than most people imagine. Think back to a time when you made a small, impulsive decision. Perhaps you took a different route home or decided to call a friend out of the blue. Suddenly, that one choice led to a sequence of events that felt perfectly orchestrated. We usually call these moments good days or lucky streaks. But have you ever noticed how the opposite pattern is just as consistent? There are periods where no matter how hard you push, every effort feels like walking through deep water. The repetition of these cycles suggests something deeper than random chance. This is the strange consistency many people notice. Life doesn't change gradually. It seems to switch between distinct modes of being. One moment, you are in a reality where everything is difficult, and the next, you are in a reality where everything is supported. We often overlook this because we are focused on the events themselves. But the pattern becomes difficult to ignore when you realize how quickly these shifts occur. The transition isn't a slow bridge, it's a sudden jump. This repetition reveals a hidden structure to our experience. It suggests that reality isn't a solid, unchanging path, but something much more fluid. The reason these shifts feel so sudden is that reality does not actually move.
This is where the experience begins to make sense. We have been taught to view our lives like a continuous film strip, where one moment bleeds slowly into the next. But the truth is much closer to the individual frames of that film. Each moment is a discrete, static snapshot of existence. In this view, you are not a single person moving through time. You are a consciousness viewing a billion different versions of yourself every second. This reveals something important about how reality works. The speed of change is actually the speed of your transition between these frames. When you feel stuck, you are simply choosing a series of frames that look almost identical. When you experience a sudden breakthrough, you have jumped to a frame that is fundamentally different. This insight is much simpler than we usually expect. You don't have to change your current reality. You only have to shift your frequency to view a version that already exists. Suddenly, the pattern of good days and stagnation becomes easier to understand. It isn't about what is happening to you, but about which frame you are currently tuned into. If the mechanism is this simple, why does it often feel so difficult to change? This is where many of us lose the signal. The obstacle isn't a lack of effort, it is our deep-seated addiction to continuity. We have been conditioned to believe that for something to be real, it must be logical, gradual, and predictable.
When a spark of excitement arrives, it is often followed immediately by a voice of reason that lists all the reasons why a sudden shift is impossible. We often mistake this inner resistance for wisdom or responsibility. We tell ourselves that caution is intelligence, when in reality, it is simply the mind trying to keep us on the same frequency because it feels familiar. This is the moment excitement gets replaced by doubt. By clinging to the old frame for safety, we effectively block ourselves from viewing the new one. We argue with the signal until the momentum vanishes, and then we wonder why we feel stuck in the same repeating patterns. How many times has your own logic silenced a signal that felt absolutely right? If you have ever felt this internal tug-of-war, I'm curious to hear about a time you felt a signal and decided to ignore it. To begin shifting, you don't need a massive life overhaul. You only need a simple way to navigate the signals appearing right now. The formula is a sequence of alignment. First, look at the options available to you in this moment. Notice which one contains even a tiny spark of excitement or curiosity. Second, act on that excitement to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It could be as simple as reading a specific book or taking a walk. Third, follow that path as far as it naturally goes, until you can take it no further. This is where the navigation begins.
The crucial step is to release any attachment to what the outcome should look like. If you insist on a specific result, you are tuning back into an old frequency of control. Instead, approach this with curiosity rather than pressure. This is how the signal becomes action, and how the shift in reality actually starts. By choosing the path of excitement, you are telling the mechanism which frame you prefer to view next. What small excitement have you been ignoring recently? If this perspective resonates with you, consider subscribing as we continue to explore how consciousness and reality interact. The change rarely starts with something dramatic. It begins in the quiet gaps of your afternoon. Imagine you are working on a routine task when a sudden, small curiosity strikes you to visit a local bookstore you usually pass by. You might almost dismiss it as a distraction, but instead you decide to follow that tiny spark of excitement. While browsing a random shelf, you strike up a brief conversation with a stranger who mentions a resource or an idea that perfectly solves a problem you've been struggling with for months. This is often how the shift begins. You didn't plan the meeting, and you didn't force the solution. By following the small impulse, you simply aligned yourself with a version of reality where that information was available. This is the chain reaction of the mechanism in motion.
You may have already experienced similar moments without realizing their significance, dismissing them as simple luck. But these are the signals of a reality shift. The signal usually appears in small moments, inviting you to step out of a repetitive loop and into a new direction. How many times has a small, unplanned decision changed the entire trajectory of your day? When you stop looking for massive miracles and start noticing these subtle invitations, the speed of reality becomes undeniable. This suggests something remarkable about the nature of reality. We have spent this journey looking at small shifts and everyday signals, but suddenly the pattern reveals a deeper meaning. If reality is a series of discrete frames, then every version of your life already exists in this very moment. The version of you that is successful, the version that is at peace, and the version that is exploring new horizons are not far away in the future. They are simply on a different frequency. This changes the way we understand the experience of time and change. It means that you are not building a life from scratch through struggle and effort. You are navigating through a pre-existing landscape of infinite possibilities. Your excitement is not just a random emotion. It is the resonance of your consciousness with a specific destination. It is a biological compass pointing toward a version of yourself that is already real.
You may already be standing at the threshold of this realization in your own life, feeling the pull of a reality you haven't yet permitted yourself to see. Could these signals be guiding us toward versions of ourselves we have not yet explored? We are not observers of a fixed world. We are the architects of our own perspective, choosing which frame of the infinite we wish to experience next. Perhaps the signal has been there all along. We often wait for a massive sign or a dramatic turning point to change our lives, but the shift begins much closer to home. It is found in the small curiosities you usually ignore and the quiet impulses you dismiss as insignificant. The pattern may already be unfolding around you, hidden in plain sight within the rhythm of your daily routine. As you move through the rest of your day, you may begin noticing these moments of alignment with a new sense of clarity. Sometimes the shift begins simply by noticing that you are already standing at a crossroads of infinite versions of yourself. How might life change if you began listening more closely to the subtle frequency of your own excitement? The journey of understanding how we navigate this flickering reality goes even deeper. If you're curious about the specific mechanics of how these internal signals shape the physical world, the next chapter of this exploration dives directly into that mystery.